Good afternoon and welcome to Rice University for the President's Lecture Series for a special presentation with a speaker whose presence could not be more timely. I want to thank our sponsors today, the Chao Center for Asian Studies and the Liu Idea Lab for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, or Lilie as it's known, both of which are at Rice University and both of which are the result of generous funding by those committed to enhancing both our education and our impact on the world. Rice University's President's Lecture Series was created to enrich the intellectual life of the Rice and Houston communities by bringing to campus, quote, celebrities of substance, unquote, speakers of both high intellectual distinction and broad public appeal. And so we want to especially welcome today those who aren't part of necessarily the Rice community, but the broader community with which Rice is engaged, both in Houston and around the world. It is fair to say that first COVID transformed our world, and then Zoom transformed our world again. Today we'll hear from someone who created a product and a company now familiar to hundreds of millions of people. For universities, it has sustained us when we needed to change our entire way of operating and delivering education within a very short period of time. Our university, in fact, utilizes Zoom for almost all of its class offerings, virtual meetings, and connectivity during a time when so many are working and learning remotely. We know our speaker has an inspiring entrepreneurial story to tell, and we'll also be able to share his thoughts on how digital education will change and develop in the years to come. We're very grateful that Yuan has made the time to join us today. One thing we can be pretty sure of is that Zoom has changed not only what we can do during the time of COVID, but also our perspective on how we will conduct education and interaction following COVID. It also affects even our personal lives. To give my own example, while have indeed conducted endless business meetings on Zoom, perhaps the most impactful thing I've done personally is to reconnect through Zoom to my high school and college classmates, some of whom I actually hadn't talked to in decades. I'm hoping, therefore, that this won't be solely a phenomenon during COVID. I think it's a good question of what Zoom or other platforms might look like in the future, even just 5 or 10 years from now. Will virtual reality be incorporated into the Zoom experience? And what would that and other capabilities mean for the educational possibilities of the future? So I'm very excited today to hear from Yuan, the CEO of Zoom. And with that, I'd like to welcome Lilie Idea, Director of the Chao Center for Asian Studies and Professor of History at Rice University.
My name is Lilie Idea, as President Lebron just said. I am a history professor in the Department of Transnational Asian Studies and director of the Chao Center for Asian Studies, which is housed in the School of Humanities and serves as the university's premier research hub for faculty and students working across disciplines in the study of a transnational, transcultural Asia. The mission of the Chao Center includes outreach to Asian and Asian American populations in Houston and beyond, promotes scholarly community building and broader understanding. We support programs such as the Houston Asian American Archives, and we host the Frank Liu Distinguished Visitor Series, which honors and celebrates innovation in business, technology, and the arts. So I invite you to explore our website, not now you're gonna listen to a wonderful talk later on this evening. The address is on your screen, and look at our calendar of events. So in the name of the Chao Center for Asian Studies, it's my great pleasure to welcome you. I'd like to introduce to you now, Yael Hochberg.
Thanks, Lisa. On behalf of the Liu Idea Lab for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, I am thrilled to have you all here today and thrilled to have Eric here to join us and talk about Zoom and the future of education. Just a little about Lilie. Lilie, or the Liu Idea Lab for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, is the home of entrepreneurship education here at Rice University. We offer a rich menu of curricular and co-curricular programming. We're home to an undergraduate minor and home to the #1 ranked graduate program in entrepreneurship by Princeton Review and Entrepreneur Magazine. We'd love to tell you more about what we do. And if you're a student, please take a look at entrepreneurship.rice.edu. Please join us in our activities. But you don't really want to hear about us. So let's turn to the man of the hour. Eric, thank you so very, very much for joining us here today. We're thrilled to have you. And before we start digging into the sort of topic that we had broached with you initially around the Zoom and its role in education, I'd love to start off by giving people a little bit of a sense of where it is that Zoom arose from and why you started the company. You had this tremendously successful career at WebEx, came into Cisco through the WebEx acquisition, grew a team to 500 people and $800 million in revenue. And then one day you pick up and you decide to leave. What prompted you to leave Cisco and kind of join and start essentially a new company in the form of Zoom?
Well, that's a great question. So, and it reminds me of back to like year 2011. So before that, first of all, I want to say thank you for President LeBron for your invitation. I truly appreciate that. So I think back to 2011, I was at Cisco. Cisco is a great company. I was Cisco's corporate vice president. They paid me very well. You are so right. There's no reason for me to leave, right? Quite often my friends told me that you have a great career. Why do you want to jump the ship to start something from from the ground up, to start over? The reason why was that the year before I left, as you mentioned, I was part of the original WebEx team. I spent so much time on making the WebEx better. However, the year before I left, so every morning when I woke up, I can tell you, not like today, I wanted to work. Back then, I did not want to go to office to work. I was not happy. The reason why every time when I talked with a WebEx customer, I did not see a single happy customer. I felt very embarrassed. I was not happy. And it took me one year. I failed to convince others to rebuild a new solution from the ground up. Finally, I decided I had no choice but to leave, build a better solution to bring happiness back to customers. Also, will make myself happy. That's the reason.
So that sounds like a definite personal goal as the founder and CEO. What would you say your vision was for the company at the time? Was it just sort of not the sad customers of WebEx or something else?
I really do not think we had a big vision, and we were think about two things. First of all, every day we thought about how to survive. It's a very crowded market, and when I share with some VCs, nobody wanted to fund us. Right? We got to think about how to survive, and also how to build a better solution than WebEx. That's it. Only two things. Every day we think about those two things for several years.
So, like you said, crowded marketplace, lots of video conferencing platforms out there. WebEx obviously coming from Cisco, which is sort of a massively successful technology company. You launched in 2011. What do you think it was that really differentiated Zoom from the pack and allowed you to survive and thrive the way that you have?
So that's a great question. So first of all, you are so right. The market was extremely crowded. However, when you talk with any users, ask them what your experience look like when you use this solution or that solution. Nobody will tell you, hey, I like this solution, I like that solution. Everybody mention, oh, I had no choice. I do not like that solution, right? So because of that, I realized there might have an opportunity. If I can build a better solution and better than any others, and also ease of use, and the pricing also much better, service quality much better, I think we can survive. That's the reason why I think finally we keep thinking about that better solution, better service, and that's the reason why I think compared to other competitors, our product finally is a better product.
All right, so here comes 2020, and this mysterious coronavirus blossoms very quickly into a worldwide pandemic. And I think it's safe to say that 9 months into the pandemic, Zoom is definitively a household name. Everybody is Zooming. And people have been leveraging your platform, not just for work and education, but like President Lebron mentioned, but also to connect with family and friends and sort of feel that human connection during quarantine and during isolation. Did you guys do anything in particular to position yourself to be the leading connection platform at the beginning of the days of the pandemic?
I don't think so, because when the pandemic crisis hit us, for the first several weeks or months, we were just heads down to one thing: how to make sure keep the service up, and more service, make sure there's no capacity problem, no outage, and do all we can to make sure the users, they can count on our platform to help them stay connected. And again, it's sort of back to day one: how to survive. We really not think about something big. How to survive, how to make sure the service is always up, because so many people and the businesses, they are counting on us, right? We got to make it work.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And so why do you think? Is there a particular reason that, for example, education has sort of been has had such tremendous uptake on Zoom? Is there something particular about the platform, or is it just sort of like you said, I've built a better product?
I think the good news was that actually back to the early state of Zoom, the day when we decided to launch the service, we had no idea who will be our first several customers or paid customers. The good news was that for the first 3 paid customers, they all came from higher ed. The Stanford Continuing Studies Group was our first paid customer. So essentially, to support a higher ed use case, already part of our company's DNA. We feel very proud. So ultimately, when it comes to video conferencing, it got to work. No matter which device, no matter what kind of network connectivity, you need to make it work. Also very easy to use. I think that's the reason why a lot of universities, technical schools, and businesses, they are using Zoom.
So I mean, excuse me. So as you experience this amazing uptake, not just in the higher ed clients, but also in the corporate clients, is there a tension there? Do they require different products? And how have you guys handled that to the extent that that's been an issue?
The good news is just one product, but we do have lots of features, essentially give a customer, especially the IT admin, of flexibility. You can configure, disable, enable those kind of features, but ultimately there's one consistent interface. Otherwise, especially when you work from home, right? You join a class, there's a different interface. You join a happy hour with your classmate, another different interface, you will get confused, right? So one interface, but we do have many features behind the scenes. You can, configure those features by yourself.
Got it. All right, so let's turn the conversation now to the topic that we are all quite interested in, which is how the pandemic has really been affecting the online learning experience and how it's likely to shape the future of education. And presumably Zoom can be expected to take a pretty significant role in this arena in the future. You have, I understand, a son who's been taking college classes through Zoom. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah.
So it must have been pretty interesting to see how your family is interacting with your platform. Has the experience of having your own family using the product for their use cases changed your viewpoint on the roadmap forward?
For sure, actually, I have 3 kids, 2 kids in the high school. I think that for my old son, he's in the college, right? For the college students, I think for them to join a remote class, I think no problem. Right? And I think that's, most of the undergraduate students, they like that experience. I give them flexibility. For K-12, it's very different. Ideally, they all should go back to the campus. They need more social interaction. Having said that, I think we got to dramatically improve the overall the product integration. Meaning, you look at the overall the higher ed or the students, right? Not only for Zoom, but also how to integrate it seamlessly with the learning management system, right? Like a Canvas or others, or how to integrate with other like the class recording tools like a Panopto, right? We need to focus on that. Give the students, the professors, a similar experience, learning experience. I think we're not there yet, but now we just focus on the Zoom We need to do more to innovate others. That's one. Two, we also, over the past 7 months, we hired, full-time dedicated product managers, specifically focusing on high ed use case. We wanted to, learn more, solicit feedback, make sure the high ed universities can really leverage Zoom and have a much better, online teaching, online classroom experience. That's, I think that if not because of pandemic crisis, probably we still like, have, several PM focus on one, all the use cases mixed together. Now we have vertical product managers focus on different use cases to improve.
Does that ultimately mean a different product per vertical, or is it still everything for everyone?
But now our priority is still as one product, but even more features. You can tailor that. So meaning at the school IT admin, I can enable all those new features specifically built for high ed. So that's our priority. Also at the same time, you're so right. So what if they want to have totally different user interface? We also offer a platform, SDK. You can build I would say the specific, totally different user interface upon our platform.
Has anyone been actually doing that as part of this pandemic? Have you seen that? What's sort of the most interesting? What's the most interesting sort of development of that sort that you observed?
So, like when it comes like classroom experience, one of our partners in the Class Edu, right? The founder and he's a former CEO of I think it's called the Blackboard, and he started a company Class Edu, leveraged our SDK, built a specific classroom experience. I've also seen other partners as well.
That's fantastic. So, as you look at this virtual education experience, do you have any concerns that you see, particularly watching your children kind of use the platform for this?
I do. Like my daughter, right? She's in high school. When first time when she uses Zoom, I think a Zoom experience is still not that intuitive. She asked the question, how do I raise my hand, right? So meaning we got to further improve the overall product experience. At the same time, I think, especially for the students, we need to have more capability in the future. Nowadays, we do not have that. They need a hangout. They need a better breakout sessions. They need more social interactions. We do not have that, right? For now, I would say in terms of overall the learning experience, virtual learning experience, I think we just started. This is the beginning. In the next several years, I truly believe we can make the online learning experience better and better.
Do you think that experience will resemble what we do in the classroom today, or do you think that will be substantially different? It opens up so many interesting possibilities to not really think about education the way we've been thinking about it for hundreds of years, but as something completely different.
I think we'll be different, but we'll be better because of the technology, right? Today, I can tell you, if you join online, it's quite often in the physical classroom, quite often some students, they may not raise their hand. They may not ask the questions. In a working meeting classroom like that, I think it's equal. Everyone, they would like to participate more, right? More engaged, right? That's why a lot of AI technology, like taking notes, for example, note taking. Students, they need to take the notes. Sometimes I'm amazed for 1 minute, I forgot what the professor, talked about. With the AI technology, for sure, I do not need to take notes anymore. The AI machine can automatically take notes for you, right? A lot of technology can make the online virtual classroom experience much better than the face-to-face, classroom experience.
That's really interesting. I think about things like, someone, for example, Lisa, in a department that's teaching history, for example, and the ability to sort of immerse yourself in the the historical context and immerse yourself in what those cultural aspects were, or actually visualize and see history in a way that you don't quite get by maybe playing a video clip of a Hollywood movie or something of that sort. Is that are you thinking ahead to things of that nature? The notion that we could build in these real experiences of sitting in a boardroom and negotiating a contract, or being at the site of an archaeological dig in what used to be ancient Babylon. How are you looking forward to things like that?
You are so right on. I think in the future, right, given the technology evolution, you even do not realize we are on the virtual classroom. You will feel like we are indeed in the same classroom. You do not see any difference, just the better, right? So that's the technology, right? Today, when you are joining the online classroom like this, you do not have a social interaction, not as good as face-to-face classroom, but in the future with technology, you really don't see any difference.
That sounds like an amazing future for us. So when do you think that that's coming? So is that in the 2021 year product release?
I hope so, but before that, we need a vaccine technology ready first. So probably take another 10 or 15, even 20 years. But that's the future. That's why we got to work harder to embrace new technology. That's why we're very excited. Fundamentally, we know that's the direction. We will take many years effort to get there.
Yeah. So this all sounds extremely exciting. And when you think about what these technologies might bring to the forefront of possibility, how do you think that really affects the education landscape going forward? And we have this system of I'd say K through 12 and college that's existed for certainly 100, maybe a couple of hundred of years. How do you think that changes education in a more general sense?
I think first of all, I think K to 12, that's a different use case. I believe for K to 12 students, they also go back to campus. A traditional way is much better as to given the age, they need more social interaction. I think don't change that. When it comes to higher ed, I do think there's a great opportunity. I'm not saying everyone should join the class online. That's does not make any sense either. More like a hybrid, right? You have a campus, you also can join online as well. And the hybrid mode can really help. Because with that, there's a lot of new technologies, new entrepreneurs, new startup companies, they can devote their time on helping the higher ed use cases, right? I think over the past 100 years, when it comes to teaching or online or classroom, I think by and large, that experience remains the same compared to 100 years ago. Now with greater technologies, we need it's time for us to think about what's the real great experience for the next 50 years. That's very important.
So I'm beginning to think about my job as a professor as almost being a video game designer. How do I simulate the things that I'm trying to teach? Are you seeing, as a result of this pandemic, entrepreneurs out there who are talking to you about what they think they can build on top of Zoom in these directions?
It's a great question. You are so right. Last month, during our annual user conference, Zoomtopia, we announced, quite a few platform initiatives. Like we have SDK, we have Zoom apps, we also have launched on Zoom service. Essentially, like for all those vertical applications like telemedicine, telehealth, for example, you can build that application with our SDK with a specific logic and a user interface. That's one area. Another area, like hey, when we join so many Zoom meetings, guess what? Anxiety, Zoom fatigue, mental health. What if within this Zoom interface, one click, I can launch a mental health app? Obviously, before the meeting's over, we can play an online game as well, right? A lot of new applications will be built upon either our platform or try to support this hybrid working place or hybrid learning experience.
So as you look forward then, it sounds like you view Zoom as sort of a platform on which many, many other things will be built. Is that a correct interpretation?
It's very right. Over the past several years, our goal was to build a killer app. Next 10 years, our goal is to build a platform business.
Yeah. Was that always in your vision, or has the pandemic really changed how you've been thinking about all of these possibilities?
I hope I had a vision on day one. Unfortunately, I do not. I think this pandemic crisis completely changed the way for us to think about the future. I can tell you, we even underestimate the importance of video conferencing like Zoom. This pandemic crisis completely changed everything. That's why we spend a lot of time thinking about what the overall experience look like in the next 5 to 10 years.
No, that makes, I mean, I think this pandemic has really, in many ways, accelerated a lot of things around sort of virtual human contact that we never might have imagined, even 2, 3, 5 years ago. So it is really amazing to see how things have changed over the course of just the last 9 months and how comfortable we've all become using these sorts of technologies. I'm curious, what are the most interesting applications you've seen kind of built so far, being the platform being used for? Are there things you never anticipated that people are using Zoom for now in the pandemic?
I think there are so many, again, prior to this pandemic crisis, Zoom was built to serve for enterprise or government business customers. We never thought about those consumer use cases. Over the past 3 months, all kinds of unique consumer use cases. Like the Emmys Award, Jimmy Kimmel's, right? He's using Zoom, right? Saturday night, Jimmy Fallon's The Tonight Show, right? The quarantined NBA players, they use Zoom to watch the team practice. America's first virtual court trial with Zoom in Florida, right? Zoom marriage is legal, in New York. All kinds of new use cases, right? I think unleash the power of the platform, right? So that's why I think every break, when we heard about those new use cases, we always, wow, we never thought about this. We never thought about that. So this is amazing.
Yeah. Well, on a personal note, I want to offer you a thank you because earlier today I celebrated my niece's bat mitzvah on Zoom. She's in New Zealand. We celebrated in the morning before she went off to school. We had relatives from 4 different continents in the immediate family who were, on the Zoom call, getting to give her the experience that she, would not have gotten in the absence of your technology. So thank you very much, because it was absolutely fantastic. And I know for my family, it's really been, a very useful and fantastic tool for really maintaining connection. So I'm curious, have you guys found new uses within the company itself for the tool? So, I guess I'd like to think that maybe for all of the Zoomers, this was the easiest transition. The rest of us, sit there and like, can you see my slides? You're muted. And I don't know if you guys experienced the same thing, but I'm guessing that your engineers and developers and business executives have probably discovered all kinds of new and interesting ways to utilize Zoom as a way to really work during this pandemic. So can you share some of that with us?
Well, first of all, I can tell you all those challenges we are facing a similar challenge. Even for myself, sometimes I mute myself. I talk, right? So it's very often. So in terms of new way to use Zoom, actually, we have some weekly meetings, like 3 or 4 times weekly meetings. We realized how to fix like potential Zoom fatigue, because we have so many back-to-back meetings. And like 3 or 7 minutes before the meeting, we always share some happy stories. That's one. 2 is also realize one thing interesting. Let's say you schedule 1 hour meeting. If you can end that meeting 5 minutes or 10 minutes earlier, all participants feel very happy, feel like they get 10 minutes back. So if you really want to schedule a 1 hour meeting, please schedule 70 minutes and 10 minutes earlier. I think we make a lot of participants happy. As we found those kind of things, we never thought about that before. So
that makes a lot of sense. And any other tips for everyone who's experiencing Zoom fatigue?
I think one thing, probably you all know that, right? So Wix for the virtual background, right? Not only for image, but also video. Quite often, some of our employees, they play the video, they play pre-recorded video for themselves. And they play the video, you feel like they're listening carefully. They always also like this. Actually, it's just recorded video.
I'm not sure we want to encourage our students to put videos of themselves nodding at us in the classroom. As nice as the affirmation might be, it's not necessarily clear that that's optimal for either the professor or the students. But no, I love the idea of thinking about how you actually give people back a little bit of time, because I do think that one of the challenges of these virtual meetings is that you really can go from one call to the next call to the next call without there ever being a break. You're not walking from one office to the next, or going anywhere. So that's those are great tips.
But also can tell you another reason why you will have a meeting fatigue. You have too many back-to-back meetings. Normally in physical work, right? If you move from one meeting to another meeting, you take a walk, you go to the restroom. Now we make it too easy. Just one click, you are jumping into the next meeting. So that's a problem. So,
yeah, no, in that context, breaks become pretty important. How have you been advising your son in terms of sort of dealing with Zoom fatigue as a student, right? I mean, I think all of us who use Zoom for work, while we appreciate the tool tremendously, we've definitely felt that feeling of, you get to the end of some back-to-back meetings, even with a few breaks, and it's tough, right? How should we think about, how do we think about this in the context of students? And I know that we're building towards something that might be less fatiguing for them, but in the moment now, as we contemplate the fact that we might be dealing with online education in spring semester, what are you seeing your son doing? What are you encouraging your children to do as they use these virtual tools for virtual learning?
I think first of all, I can tell you, we do have a feature, and a lot of the universities, classes that are using that, which is the pre-call room, right? Use that feature more. Let the students, they have a small group discussion, right? No need to have a professor there. More pre-call room, small group discussion for sure can help. That's one. Another thing, tell the students, right? You gotta take a break. Proactively take a break. Right? Don't use a phone. Don't join the Zoom meetings. And then read your book. Right? Think about the topic the professor just told you, right? I think as long as they're aware of that problem, I think kids, the students are very smart. They know how to balance the work and also what they should do. And I think as long as we tell them, the problem is sometimes if they do not know that, they keep joining all the meetings, learning, and finally you might have anxiety, depression, and that's very important. Mental health is extremely important for those kids to work from home.
Yeah. So does this suggest that we should be thinking more about things like the flipped classroom and asynchronous content to go along with these discussions on Zoom? And what of that are you seeing some of that with some of your higher ed clients or your K through 12s?
Absolutely. Essentially more like asynchronous, recording the tools, right? The professor can, record something. You don't need to have a live session like this, right? And the kids, they can learn, when they have a time, right? It's more like async collaboration tools, right? That's one, right? Another thing, how to integrate those two together, right? And in real time and async collaboration tools, better integration with the other tools, it certainly can help, the way for kids or professor to teach.
Yeah, and I think this has been, I know as an educator, this has been one of our, one of my continuous challenges as I taught both last spring and as I teach this fall around what can I do to make this the best experience for my students and to avoid that situation where they're all sort of, let me turn off my camera or nodding off, right? And the tools that we had to make our in-person classroom experience engaging aren't necessarily the best tools. So I think these are topics that many of us professors have been thinking about, but also I think many of the students as they try to think about how they can give us suggestions on how to be better. And it's great to hear sort of the tips from you guys and what you're seeing at other schools. And I think these discussions really help a lot of us come to a better place in trying to improve what we're doing in our online education. So, which is great. So, I'm curious, how has the whole working from home Zoom situation affected the culture for your employees in the company?
So yeah, for all of us, since early March, to work from home for such a long time, I can tell you, really not that easy. Even for our employees, like all adults, in terms of number of employees with mental health problems, much higher than before, right? So we got to fix that problem. That's why we're working together with some other application providers to embed the mental health experience into the Zoom app. That's one. The two is we got to really engage with our employees. Not only think about it from their, ask the question about themselves, ask questions about their families as well. Right? That is also very important. Our company culture is about delivering happiness. We do all we can make sure employees happy. And every morning when they wake up, we highly recommend every employee ask about themselves the first question: do they feel happy? If they do, yeah, we can come to work. If do not feel happy, take a step back to figure out the root cause, what we can do differently, what kind of help you need from a family, from the employer, and to help make sure you are happy. That's very important. Otherwise, if you're not happy for such a long time, really have a depression, anxiety can really cause the productivity loss, right? That's very important. I think that will be applied, to the students, to the kids as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's definitely true. And it sounds like that's an outgrowth of your own experience, kind of waking up every morning at Cisco and kind of going, I'm not enjoying coming to work, every day. And it's interesting. I not every founder knows or thinks about how you build corporate culture in that way and company culture. So is this something you guys thought about from the beginning, this notion of like, I'm going to do my best to make sure that everyone who comes to work in my company comes in every day happy to be there?
Yes, that's from day one. On day one, when I showed up in my small office, I only did two things. One thing is to order, use the furniture. I need to assemble that. Another thing to write it on the company culture. Because I wanted to know what kind of a company I wanted to work for next 10 or 20 years. I want to make sure every morning, not only myself, all employees, they feel excited, they feel happy. Otherwise, employees are not happy. You let them talk or interact with your customers. Do you think they can bring happiness back to customers? No way, I think, right? That's why employee happiness is our company culture on day one. It's very important.
Yeah, no, I mean, that seems like a very obvious thing to those of us. Obviously, we teach entrepreneurship at Lilie, so we spend a lot of time kind of talking about these team culture and team formation issues. So I think, I do think a lot of the students that we have on the call today are actually some of our Lilie students. And I'm curious, what tips you might have to students who are contemplating the idea of launching something new in the context of this pandemic and in the context of a situation that's very different than sort of the normal environment we might have to support student entrepreneurs, right? We can't bring them in physically and work with them in quite the same way. So I don't know if you have any perspectives as someone who has, founded a company, but also led it through this really extraordinary time. What advice might you have or thoughts might you have to someone who's starting something new right now?
I think if you want to start something new, I would say, in terms of hiring, the engineers or employees, I would say much better than before. Used to be we all needed to get it together, right? Now you can hire anywhere in the world, right? So, that means to start a company is much easier. Also, if you want to raise capital, you do not need to go to the office or visit the office. You also can close a round of financing remotely as well. It happened many, many times over the past 7 months. The key is still about you have idea, you think about it, you want to do that, just do it. And it's much easier now to start a company. And also a lot of new market or business opportunities. Like as mentioned, what's the new online learning experience look like? If you have that domain expertise, you might build a great online classroom experience based on our platform, right? Because there's a lot of new opportunities. I think just to do it is very important.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I think the pandemic has opened up a lot of new and interesting directions that people can go. Do you guys at Zoom have any particular sort of market needs that you're looking at that you wish some of our, new innovators and entrepreneurs would work on to solve?
Absolutely, as I mentioned earlier, right, that there will have lots of vertical applications for remote working or remote online learning, telemedicine. I do not take Zoom for example. We are more like a technology platform. A lot of new use cases we are not familiar with, right? If you have that domain expertise, you can build all kinds of applications. I'll give you one example. Like the virtual card trial. right? You will still use this generic product. Maybe some special logical use cases, right? You can build that application if you understand that, especially for the law school student, right? And there's so many, the vertical applications that can be built upon a platform, right? That's huge opportunity.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So, so has Zoom changed? As this pandemic has changed, has it changed how you mentioned that it's a lot easier now to hire engineers? How have you guys changed your hiring practices and sort of where you're sourcing talent from as a result of all of this?
I think first of all, used to be, we have office headquarters San Jose, right? I have Kansas office and the Denver office and New York office. Normally, when it comes to hiring, we always think about our physical office. Now, seriously, every time we have a candidate, right? We do not need to worry about it. They must be close to our physical office. We can hire those employees anywhere. That's one. The two is I think when it comes to working together, right? They always can get a job done with the tools like this, right? You do not need to spend 1 hour, coming to the office. I think, giving employees, a greater flexibility. They even have more time, with their families, right? However, the problem is for the new employees, the onboarding process is not that easy because they never see each other, right? No social interaction. It does bring some challenges for us.
Yeah. So do you think that the advent of this sort of increased flexibility means that companies will become more international more quickly, and that maybe the distribution of talent will become a little bit more widely spread across the globe?
Very right. You already see that over the past several months, some engineers, the top talent engineers, used to living in the Silicon Valley, now they can move to other cities now, right? They still can get a job done. I think more and more, I think that you will see that the companies, when you start a new company, you do not need to have a physical office anymore. Prior to this pandemic crisis, I know several startup companies are doing very well. They do not have a single physical office. In the future, let's see, if I start over, if I start a Zoom today, I do not think I need any physical office.
None at all.
Not at all, exactly, no need.
All right. I mean, that doesn't bode well for corporate real estate, but are there other things you would do differently if you were starting today?
So as I mentioned, even if I do not need to have an office, that not mean we do not want to get our employees together, right? Like we work, we still can use that space, right? I think that's one. Two is we got to think about, a lot of opportunities about the digital transformation, right? What kind of tools you want to deploy, right? Because essentially every employee will become their own IT support, right? You need to give the best breed of the tools, right? Not like always think about you have IT team, they can help, they can maintain, they can deploy those kind of tools, right? It's also very important for employee productivity.
Yeah. So that's, I mean, it seems to imply that there are going to be a lot of changes to how work looks in the future, which I think is a subject of interest to many of our students who are going to be graduating into, a job market that they might not, be used to. So, I mean, do you have, if you look ahead and you think towards what work might look like as we come out of this pandemic, maybe 2 or 3 years from now, what do you visualize, both for Zoom and for everyone else?
I think I fundamentally believe the future of work is about hybrid. Really not necessary to let employees to go to office every day. And also it's too aggressive to send all employees back to home for such a long time. Essentially like, 3 days a week, we all go back to home, 2 days in the office and vice versa, right? Or maybe give employee choice. They can decide today work from home, today, tomorrow work in the office. Either way should be okay. Fundamentally, I think the way for us to work, live, play, and learn is different. That's very important. But how different in terms of each use cases, we need to deep dive, after the pandemic crisis is over, and always think about how to optimize that experience.
So what does this imply for how we as university educators can better train our students to think about this transition into hybrid or remote first roles in this world? What can we be What should we be doing now to prepare our students for this vision that you have in the future?
I think first of all, we got to train those students. You got to prepare well. Always adapt to changes quickly, right? Don't have a fixed, mindset, right? So meaning, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that. Adapt to the situation quickly is always right thing to do, right? Meaning mentally they are ready. That's one. Two is always think about during this transition period, right? Next several years, a lot of new opportunities, new use cases. How to leverage that opportunity. Don't think about I need to work for a big company for 5 years, 10 years, then I can become entrepreneur to start a company. No, you probably already ready, right? Because it's a great opportunity. And how to grab that opportunity, to start something. Because to start a company with a business idea is much easier than before.
Yeah, this is, these are, I think, really interesting points for us to be thinking about as we think about what the future of university education is going to look like, and really interesting points for us to think about. So I know we only have a few minutes left, but I did want to ask. I think you're fairly well known for being a really active user and being very responsive to user feedback on Twitter. That's not typical for a software CEO. So I was curious, where does it come from? How has it helped you? And why don't you see more CEOs doing the same?
So it boils down to our company's value. Our company value is one word, care. Meaning they care about the community, customer, company, teammates, as well as ourselves. When it comes to caring about our customers, I got to lead by example. If customer, send me email, I did not reply back, or customer shared some feedback on Twitter, I do not pay attention to. Do you think our employees will do that? No, right? We got to do. I think I got to lead by example. That's the way for us to demonstrate our care for our users, to our, the customers. That's very important. Also, that's my passion. Every time when I receive the feedback, either positive feedback or negative feedback, and never, say, hey, ignore that. I always take that feedback very, very seriously. I can tell you, early stage at Zoom, we were very small. Every end user, paid user, they cancel the service. I personally wrote back an email to ask about why. It's very important. It's a part of the company overall culture.
Yeah, that's a very detailed approach to customer success right there. It's fantastic. Well, Eric, I want to be conscious of your time, and I thank you very much for really joining us today. Before we close out, do you have any other parting messages that you might give to our students, our future innovators, our future entrepreneurs, and our future workers?
I think first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I think for all the students in the campus, you witness through this pandemic crisis. It's not a bad thing, because other students may not experience that. Always think about what you can do differently. Leverage this crisis to become a better version of yourself. That's very important.
Excellent. Well, Eric, thank you so very, very much for being here. It's been great having you here and hearing your thoughts for sort of the future of what Zoom might become. And I personally am looking forward to seeing it. And to hear your thoughts about education. And on behalf of the Liu Idea Lab and on behalf of Rice University, I really want to thank you for taking time from what must be an incredibly busy period for you at Zoom to talk to our students and our community, and we truly appreciate it.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Good. All right. Well, our students can't applaud for you, but you have our applause and our thanks, and thanks to all of your team for everything that they've been doing to make our pandemic experience much, much better.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, President Lebron. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, and with that, I believe we are concluded. Thank you to all the students who have joined us, and we can't wait to see you over Zoom in the classroom.